Hi, my name is Amanda McPhail, and I've not been known to call much attention to myself when it comes to speeches. But as a longtime Robert Burns fan, I would like to address that it actually didn't occur to me for the longest time that the only speeches women seem to be involved in during Burns dinners are the reply to the toasts to the lassies and not the actual toasts themselves, and that accepting the task of toasting the immortal memory, it might be a bit of a bigger deal than I thought. However, confidence was restored in listening to Burns's song, Green Grow the Rashes, with the lines, "All nature swears, the lovely dears, her noblest work she classes o', her prentice hand she tried on man." And then she made the lasses o'. Robert Burns was born on January 25th, 1759, in a small cottage in Alloway to tenant farmers William Burness and Agnes Brown. His father valued education and taught his children reading, writing, arithmetic, history, and geography. To supplement his homeschooling, Robert was sent to school to study French and Latin. It was during the times when he came back home to help at the farm that inspired his poetry. As current events with the pandemic shut the world down, a quote from Robert Burns' famous poem, "To a Mouse," came to my mind. Burns, working as a plowman, had turned up a mouse's nest, and observing the panic he arose in the mouse, he writes, "Wee sleeket cowerin' timorous beastie, oh, what a panic's in my breastie." He then goes on to describe how scaring the mouse with his presence is an indication that man's dominion has broken nature's social union, and justifies that ill opinion that makes the mouse startle. Burns tells how the mouse was preparing for winter, and now all its plans are dashed in a moment, with its home being destroyed. Nearing the end of the poem, Burns gives us a glimpse into a greater understanding behind his observation through comparing our lives to the life of a mouse and how similar we are. "But, Mousie, thou art know thy lane. In proving foresight may be vain. The best laid schemes of mice and men gang after gley, and leave us naught but grief and pain for promised joy." In the last stanza, Burns then points out the differences that he has with the mouse. "Still, thou art blessed compared with me. The present only toucheth thee. But, oh, I backward cast my ee on prospects drear, and forward though I canny see, I guess and fear." So upon reading these lines, when our plans faced cancellation after cancellation, as with all other festivals and events, I read those lines and felt a sense of camaraderie with the plowman poet, despite the many years that separate us. Burns's words dig deep into the soul of humanity, and therefore his work is relevant and enduring. In the late 18th century, Burns was living in an era of social reform. The French Revolution was advocating the rights of man, and the world was seeing a rise in a new way of thinking. In Burns's famous poem, "A Man's a Man," he points out the inequalities in society and looks forward to a future where we can be equal. And this is shown in the last couple of lines of his song. "For all that and all that, it's coming yet for all that. That man to man the world over shall brothers be for all that." And Burns also acknowledges in his work, with all the fuss over the rights of man, the rights of women merit some attention. The poem Rights of Women itself, to our modern standards, can be viewed as condescending. However, in the time of Robert Burns, this way of thinking was revolutionary. And he even quotes words from a song of the French Revolution in the last line of the poem. "Ah, ça ira, the majesty of woman, showing his audience that women claiming their rights is something that is imminent. Ah, sa ira translates to, it will be all right, and it is the supposed words of Benjamin Franklin when questioned by the French about how the American Revolution was doing. Using a chant of revolution and change at the time in The Rights of Women shows us that Robert Burns was well ahead of his time, and not only did he believe women should be listened to, but may be able to change society for the better. I recently read a compelling presentation by the Calgary Burns Club from 2018, where they explained Burns as communicating the idea that the predominantly male ruling class would benefit from turning their attention to the female sex to generate some humanity when it came to solving problems, as opposed to the male fixation with violence and the taking up of arms. So it's possible that Burns was gently suggesting women be revered as the pacifist voice that the government lacked, and indeed needed, for the benefit of humankind going forward. The Rights of Women was written in 1792. And today, women indeed benefit from some of these early campaigns for change. And now that Burns' opinion of women has been laid out, we can get a glimpse into some of the characters in his poetry, such as Tam O'Shanter, the cautionary tale of excessive drunkenness. Tam's wife, Kate, angrily sits at home, gathering her brows like a gathering storm, nursing her wrath to keep it warm. And her anger is not unfounded. She's worried that Tam's drunkenness is going to end him up drowned in the River Doon. Burns paints us a picture of Tam's close encounter that he nearly ended in succumbing to his consequences of his behavior, proving his wife right. Tam O'Shanter left the pub in Ayr steaming drunk and riding his horse Meg past the old Kirk Alloway when a party in the old kirkyard catches his eye. It's the devil playing the pipes and witches dancing in short night skirts. Well, Tam singles one of those witches out, Cutty Sark, one of the witches, and all was dark. The next thing that happens is Cutty Sark goes after Tam, and he narrowly escapes her vengeance by crossing the river of the Brig of Doon. His horse Meg escaped with her life, but not with her tail. Cutty Sark had grasped hold of Meg's tail before it crossed the keystone of the brig, and as we all know, witches can't cross water, so Meg and Tam were safe on the other side. Tam O'Shanter is one of Robert Burns' most notable poems, with beautiful, insightful lines like this one. But pleasures are like poppies spread. You seize the flower, its bloom is shed. Or like the snow falls in the river, a moment white, then melts forever. His genius for the written word is all the more impressive upon finding out that the poem was composed in a single day. In one of the Burns poetry books that I have, Mrs. Burns was quoted as recollecting one day in the winter of 1790 that the poet had lingered longer by the riverside than his wont, and that, taking her children with her, she went out to join him. But perceiving that her presence was an interruption to him, she lingered behind him. Her attention was attracted by his wild gesticulations and ungovernable mirth, while he was reciting the passages of the poem as they arose in his mind. And it's no wonder that the story is so exciting to him. Tam O'Shanter has everything it's needed in a ghost story. The spooky cemetery, coffins opening with bones on display, thunder and lightning, a fear for the main character's safety, a bit of humor, witches, and some music. So upon my rereading of Tam O'Shanter and preparing for today, I thought to myself, well, this scene reminds me of a modern Halloween display. But familiarity in this poem isn't hard to find when it's been the inspiration to a wide range of people, including my most surprising revelation, the rock band Iron Maiden, whose title track, The Number of the Beast, was inspired by Tam O'Shanter. And while we're talking about Burns being an inspiration to the modern world of music, when American singer-songwriter Bob Dylan was asked to reveal the lyric or verse that had the greatest impact on his life, he surprised his audience by choosing the lyrics to Robert Burns's A Red, Red Rose. Oh, my love's like a red, red rose that's newly sprung in June. Oh, my love's like a melody that's sweetly played in tune. So fair art thou, my bonny lass, so deep in love am I, and I would love thee still, my dear, to all the seas gang dry. To all the seas gang dry, my dear, and the rocks melt with the sun, and I will love thee still, my dear, while the sands of life shall run. A Red, Red Rose is one of the most powerful love songs I have ever heard. My favorite modern rendition of the song is by Eddie Reader in her album Songs of Robert Burns, which contains many modern covers of Burns's music. And other artists have covered Burns's music as well, most notably Dougie MacLean and Paolo Nutini. But Burns's influence did not only extend to musicians. American abolitionist leader Frederick Douglass was born into slavery in the 19th century and escaped to become a renowned activist, writer, and speaker. Douglass discovered the collected works of Robert Burns in a bookshop and soon became fascinated by Burns. Douglass often quoted "A man's a man for all that" in his many speeches and in his writing on abolition. Douglass even made a pilgrimage to the Burns Monument in his tour of Scotland, as well as meeting Robert Burns's last surviving sibling, Isabella Bake. Abraham Lincoln is another prominent figure who had a deep connection with Robert Burns and was known to recite his poetry by heart. Some scholars speculate that Lincoln's politics may have been influenced by the Plowman poet's liberal views, therefore showing how Burns's work has contributed to shaping our modern world as he influenced leaders in political movements worldwide. Robert Burns is also remembered as a pioneer of the Romantic movement in literature, influencing poets such as William Wordsworth, Samuel Taylor Coleridge, and Percy Bysshe Shelley. And there was also Sir Walter Scott, who was an admirer of Burns's work as well. Scott wrote in one of his diary entries about Burns, "Long life to thy fame and peace to thy soul, Rob Burns. When I want to express a sentiment which I feel strongly, I find the phrase in Shakespeare or thee." Burns extensively collected Scottish folk songs to preserve in print, as well as composing some of his own to add. The first time I went to Ayr in 2004, I went to Burns' Birthplace Museum in Alloway. And I remember reading the lyrics to a song I was quite familiar with, scrawled in ink on an old yellowed page, and I instantly found a connection with Robert Burns. The lyrics stirred up memories of watching the ball drop on New Year's Eve. It was a song everyone was singing to George Bailey at the end of It's a Wonderful Life. And it's the song that was being sung when Forrest Gump leaned over and wished Lieutenant Dan a Happy New Year. In the movie When Harry Met Sally, they speculate about what the words to the song mean. And at the end of Will Ferrell's movie Elf, a bluesy rendition of it's played on the piano and sung by the main characters when the family is together. The song is recognized as one of the top 3 songs in the English language alongside Happy Birthday and For He's a Jolly Good Fellow. And it appears in over 40 major motion pictures. The song is called Audlang Zein, and it's a song that Burns made available for the world to sing, representing the longing for friends and family to get back together after a long absence. Let's let Audlang Zein be a reminder to us all that although we may be apart, we do not forget our good friends, and we can look forward to a time when we can get together again, join hands, and sing. Should old acquaintance be forgot and never brought to mind? Should old acquaintance be forgot and days of Audlang Zein? For Audlang Zein, my dear, for Audlang Zein, we'll take a cup of kindness yet for Audlang Zein. Burns was a man who wrote about his profound understanding of life's uncertainty, the depths of human emotions such as fear, love, separation, friendship. His poetry and music unify us, showing what it is to be human. His work transcends the bounds of time. So please, raise your glass and join me in a toast to the immortal memory of Robert Burns.